All right, here's your quiz one review. Starting with problem number one, we have 4/5 plus 4/15 minus 3/10. And recall that in order to add or subtract fractions, you have to have common denominators. So we need to find the least common multiple between 5, 15, and 10, which would be 30. We would want to rewrite each of these fractions so that they have denominators of 30. In order for us to make that 5 become a 30, we have to multiply 5 times 6. Therefore, we need to multiply the numerator by 6. 6 times 4 gives us 24 in the numerator of our first fraction. The second fraction, 15 times 2, is what gives us 30 in our denominators. Therefore, we multiply the numerator also by 2. 4 times 2 will make our second numerator become 8. And the last fraction, the third fraction, in order to obtain 30 in the denominator, we have to multiply 10 times 3. And therefore, we must also multiply the numerator times 3. So we'll get 9, 3 times 3 as the numerator of our second fraction. Now we would keep that common denominator of 30, and we're going to add and then subtract the terms in the numerator. 24 plus our 8 will give us 32, minus the 9 will give us 23 in our numerator. And you just want to confirm that your fraction is in lowest terms. In this case, it is. So you would leave your answer as 23 over 30. Now look at example 2. For our mixed numbers 2 and 7/8 divided by 4 1/2, we want to first convert these mixed numbers to fractions where the numerator is larger than the denominator. And to do that, we're going to keep these denominators the same. So for this first fraction, our denominator will remain 8. To get the numerator, we would multiply the whole number times the denominator. So 2 times 8 gives us 16, plus the numerator, which is 7. So 16 plus 7 will become 23. When you divide by a fraction, that is the same as multiplying by that reciprocal. So we convert this operation from division to multiplication, and then we're going to change this fraction first to a fraction where the numerator is larger than the denominator. And remember, to do that, we would keep the denominator the same, multiply the whole number times the denominator. 4 times 2 gives us 8. And then we're going to add the numerator 1, which would give us 9/2. The reciprocal of 9/2, we're going to reverse this fraction and move the denominator to the numerator and the numerator to the denominator. So that will become 9/2. This is us multiplying by the reciprocal. I'm sorry, that will become 2/9. We need to convert that fraction. After we take the reciprocal, which is 2/9, we're going to simplify here. You notice that your 8 and 2, these numbers that are diagonal to each other, can be cross-canceled. Both of those numbers can be divided by 2. So that's what we want to do here to simplify. We divide 8 by 2, that gives us 4. 2 by 2, that gives us 1. And now we multiply across. In our numerators, 23 times 1 will give us 23. And our denominator is 4 times 9, that will give us 36. Again, you want to confirm that this fraction is in lowest terms, and if it is, this is your solution. Let's look at example 3. For example 3, we want to insert either less than, greater than, or the equal to symbol when we're comparing these 3 sets of numbers. The first one, we're comparing -4 to -1. So I want you to consider a number line when you look at problems like this. If on my number line I plotted 0, -1 would be to the left of 0, and then -4 would be to the left of -1. So the -4 is smaller than -1 since it's farther away from 0, and therefore we would put a less than symbol here. -4 is less than -1. Now remember, these two vertical lines means absolute value, and they also relate to 0 on our number line. Now I recommend when you have fractions that you convert these fractions to decimals so that you can compare them easier. If we divide 1 by 7, in decimal form, this would be 0.1428. And some other numbers, we're just writing the first four numbers, so 1428. And the absolute value of that is going to just be 0.1428. That's how far away from 0 this value is. The absolute value of -3/4, how far is that from 0 on the number line? Remember, it's going to be a positive value, but 3/4 as a decimal is 0.75. So we want to know how far away is this 0.75, -0.75 from 0, and it'll be just 0.75 units away. Now, which of these is, how are we going to compare that first number to the second number? Which of these will we substitute? Less than, greater than, or equal to? Well, let's look at it. We have 0.1428 on the left side, and we have 0.75 on the right side. You see that 0.1428 is actually less than the 0.75. It's a smaller decimal. Now, the third one, we have 0, and we're comparing it to 0/4. Remember, 0 divided by anything is also equal to 0. So you should put an equal sign here. 0 is equal to 0/4. And let's look at the fourth problem. We got to perform order of operations here in order to complete this example. And what we see, our order of operations, remember we want to work on our parentheses or grouping symbols, exponents, and then we'll look at our multiplication or division, left to right. And then we want to look at our addition or subtraction left to right. So let's look for any parentheses or grouping symbols first. So we notice that we have 8 minus 5 in parentheses. All right, so this 8 minus 5, that becomes 3 cubed. I'm just going to perform that step and then copy down each of the terms around those values. So our division sign, minus, and our 54 in front, and then our 3 squared. Now we've completed the grouping symbols, now the exponents. So we have 3 squared in front, that gives us 9. We're done with that. Carry down our minus here, carry down our 54, carry down our division symbol, and then 3 cubed, that's 27. Carry down our multiplication, our 2, our minus, and our 6. And now left to right, we have subtraction, division, multiplication, and subtraction. So now we're looking at our multiplication and our division from left to right. Division comes first. So 54 divided by 27, that gives us 2. We're going to carry down the multiplication symbol, the 2 that was behind the 27, because we performed this step. Carry down our minus and our 6, carry down the 9 and the minus sign in front. And now our multiplication comes next. 2 times 2 gives us 4. So we're done with that multiplication step. We're going to carry down the 6 and the 9 in front. Now from left to right, we have 9 minus 4, that gives us 5, minus 6. Our final answer will be -1. All right, and the last example, we're going to classify these values as either rational or irrational. Now remember, our rational numbers can be determined when we have decimal forms. Remember, rational numbers are going to be those that terminate or they have a repeating pattern. And then irrational numbers are going to be those decimals that repeat without a pattern. If you were to calculate the square root of 1, you get 1. Okay, so plus or minus 1, that would be a rational number. Because we can write 1 as a fraction. We can put 1/1. Therefore, the first example, plus or minus square root 1, is going to be rational. The second example, plus or minus square root 3, if we plug in the square root of 3 into our calculators, we're going to get a decimal that repeats but without a pattern. So therefore, the square root plus or minus the square root of 3 is going to be irrational. And the next example, negative 8.19 with this line above it. That means 19 is going to be repeating itself. So it represents 19, 19. Since we have a repeating pattern of 19, this third problem, the third example is going to be rational. A repeating pattern. And then the fourth one, negative 8 pi. Remember, pi is a value number that repeats infinitely, and it does not have a pattern. So anytime you have pi or any digit attached to pi, that will be an irrational number. And then the last one, we have 62.14. This is a terminating decimal. Therefore, it is rational. All right. So this is your review for quiz 1. Good luck on the quiz.